This is another sign of the times, an analysis, and a commentary. Climate change is happening right now. They say that James Hansen wishes he were wrong. He wasn't. NASA's top climate scientist in 1988, Hansen warned the world on a record hot June day 30 years ago that global warming was here and worsening. In a scientific study that came out a couple months later, he even forecast how warm it would get, depending on emissions of heat-trapping gases. The hotter world that Hansen envisioned in 1988 has pretty much come true so far, more or less. 3 decades later, most climate scientists interviewed rave about the accuracy of Hansen's predictions, given the technology of the time. Hansen won't say, "I told you so." I don't want to be right in that sense, Hansen told the Associated Press in an interview in his New York penthouse apartment. That's because being right means the world is warming at an unprecedented pace, and ice sheets in Antarctica and Greenland are melting. Hansen said what he really wishes had happened is that the warning be heeded and actions be taken. They weren't. Hansen, now 77, regrets not being able to make this story clear enough for the general public. Global warming was not what Hansen set out to study when he joined NASA in 1972. The Iowa native studied Venus, a planet with a runaway greenhouse effect run. When he got interested in Earth's ozone hole, as he created computer simulations, he realized that this planet was more interesting than Venus and more important. In his 1988 study, Hansen and colleagues used 3 scenarios for emissions of heat-trapping gases: high, low, and medium. Hansen and other scientists concentrated on the middle scenario. Hansen projected that by 2017, the globe's 5-year average temperature would be about 1.85 degrees higher than the 1950 to 1980 NASA calculated average. NASA's 5-year average global temperature ending in 2017 was 1.48 degrees above the 30-year average. He did not take into account that the sun would be cooling a tad, which would reduce warming nearly 0.2 of a degree Fahrenheit. Hansen also predicted a certain number of days of extreme weather, temperatures above 95 degrees, freezing days and nights when the temperatures that doesn't drop below 75 per year for 4 U.S. cities in the decade of the 2010s. Hansen's forecast generally underestimated this decade's warming in Washington, overestimated it in Omaha, was about right in New York, and mixed in Memphis. A climate analysis chief at the National Center for Atmospheric Research said Hansen's global temperature forecast was incredible, and his extremes for the cities were astounding in their accuracy. Berkeley Earth's Zeke Hosfather gives Hansen's predictions a 7 or 8 for accuracy out of 10. He said, Hansen calculated that the climate would respond a bit more to carbon dioxide than scientists now think. Hansen had testified before Congress on climate change at a fall 1987 hearing that didn't get much attention, likely because it was a cool day, he figured. So the next hearing was scheduled for the next summer, and the weather added heat to Hansen's words. At 2 p.m., the temperature hit a record high, 98 degrees, and felt like 102. Right then, Hansen went out on a limb and proclaimed that global warming was here. Until then, most scientists merely warned of future warming. He left NASA in 2013, devoting more time to what he calls his anti-government job of advocacy. Hansen, still at Columbia University, has been arrested 5 times for environmental protests. Each time he hoped to go to trial to draw attention to the issues, but the cases were dropped. He writes about saving the planet for his grandchildren, including one who is suing the federal government over global warming inaction. His advocacy has been criticized by scientific colleagues, but he makes no apologies. If scientists are not allowed to talk about the policy implications of the science, who is going to do that? People with financial interests? Hansen asked. This too is another sign of the end of times as we know them. Transition days, which is a time of extraordinary changes, happenings, and events. Because it's still about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations, and that should be a very important question to ask. Mark chapter 13. And as he came out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what wonderful stones and what wonderful buildings." And Jesus said to him, "Do you see these great buildings? There will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." And as he sat on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign when all these things are about to be accomplished?" And Jesus began to say to them, "See that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray. And when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. These are but the beginning of the birth pains." Yes, it's time for prophecy to be fulfilled. This is what I see, think, feel, and spiritually discern. And all these are more signs.